as well as providing general advice with regard to copyright issues, and general entertainment contract issues. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do as an attorney in the entertainment industry, providing legal services for persons who are involved, to guide them through the various relationships that they do get into, explaining what the relationships mean, what is required of them, how they should protect themselves, the types of agreements that they need to have. I prepare agreements on their behalf, I vet agreements on their behalf, and so on. That's basically what is entailed in an entertainment law practice for me.
Right, I know, and the reason I asked that question, and I'm so glad you gave quite a thorough answer, is I was quite amazed that somebody thought an entertainment lawyer was an attorney who was an entertainer.
Well, a few people probably think so, and a lot of people are not aware of what is involved in an entertainment law practice. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that in the music industry, for example, there are a number of relationships that people get into that are business relationships that result in persons having various rights and interests in music that is recorded, in performances that are rendered live on stage, and these relationships have to be governed by contracts, so that everyone knows exactly what they are entitled to, what they are authorized to do, and what they are not authorized to do. And one of the main aspects of the music and entertainment industry generally is the whole issue of copyright. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Which basically is the basis on which you can generate income, from recordings or writing books or producing films. So you need to understand what copyright is all about, and there are laws governing copyright in most of the countries, and there are also international agreements governing copyrights, and there are agencies that you must interact with if you want to have your rights properly protected so that you can earn from these rights. And these are some of the things that an attorney can assist you with, explaining and guiding you through.
Now, thank you very much.
I don't entertain at all.
You don't entertain, but you do help entertainers. Now, I know it's extremely important for an artist to protect their intellectual property, but one of the issues, especially for Caribbean and some other artists, and we're getting a message, Mr. Stanbury, from one of the listeners in the chat room to ask if you could speak a little louder, but that may be me not putting up your volume because I didn't want to get any feedback. But if you could be cognizant that lots of people are here listening and recording this program for further forwarding on in terms of the conversation. But how important is it for artists at the very outset of their career to bring an attorney on board as part of their team?
It's very important, but it is also sort of problematic in that attorneys generally don't work for free. I do.
I'm not sure if you want to put that out there, Mr. Stanbury.
No, I'm just saying sometimes you get abused when you do that. But it is very important that you have legal guidance from the very outset, because once you start as a recording artist, for example, and you go into a studio, you get into a relationship with a producer, you make a recording, there needs to be some agreement between the artist and the producer as to, who owns what, who has the right to enter into discussions with distributors and things of that nature. It's critical that you have legal guidance from the very outset. But as I say, it is somewhat problematic because the average artist just starting out isn't generating enough income to pay an attorney. So, you may want to try to align yourself with a manager who is knowledgeable, who can provide some amount of guidance until you get to the point where you're generating enough income to pay an attorney, or you have resources from elsewhere to invest in the development of your business, like any other business.
I know.
So it's critical that you bring on board someone that can provide some amount of legal guidance from the very beginning.
I know in the past that managers have also abused their power and really also abused the ignorance of some of the artists that they're working with. And we see artists, the work that is accredited to them being somehow transferred to a manager or a producer. How does a new artist coming into the industry prevent that from happening if they're not able to bring on the services or employ the services of an attorney?
There is quite a bit of information that you can access. It is much easier today than it was in years gone by. A lot of information is available online as to what is involved in the business of music. So people should read and get some amount of knowledge about what is required when you're getting into relationships with managers, with producers, and so on. Yeah.
Well,
There's
certainly
a
to
ton
have
of information that is available online.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly to have the rudiments, because to be an attorney is requires a lot of studying and expertise, because as we know, laws change. So you have to be on top of the current law. But certainly, new artists need to arm themselves with certain tools. Let me take you back to your first involvement with reggae and reggae artists in Jamaica. And I learned that you started out in 1983 with a very, very popular duo. How did that come about? Were you always an entertainment attorney? Was that your specialized field?
Well, I qualified as an attorney. Should I be saying these things? Anyway,
Absolutely.
my gray beard pictures are all over the place, so I'm on in age.
But you're looking good.
I qualified as an attorney in 1979, and I was just practicing in taxation first, but I was always a music fan. And I was always a very serious fan of music. I would travel all over the place just to listen to reggae music. And by doing this, this is how I met Sly Dunbar. I met Sly Dunbar by just going to the studios to just watch him play and record, going to his home and chit-chatting with him, and we became friends. And in 1983, he and Robbie wanted to celebrate their 10th anniversary in the business as producers and musicians. And, he just said, Stanny, this is what he calls me, why don't you produce the show? I said, really? And he said, yeah, work with us and let us put this show on. So that is how I got involved. We worked along with Sly and Robbie, a group of friends and myself. And we put on the Sly and Robbie Taxi Connection 10th anniversary concert in Kingston in the National Arena, which was my first venture in the business. So my first venture in music was not as an attorney, but as a promoter.
Right.
And we organized and promoted that concert.
And to all intents and purposes, what a way to kind of get your feet wet in the industry, but to be producing a show that Sly and Robbie's putting on. I also understand that you are the co-founder of a very, very popular radio station in Jamaica, REFM.
Yes, that is something that came later on. I think in 1988, I met a businessman in Ocho who was in the business of tourism entertainment. Carl Young, he had a recording studio, and he secured a license to set up a station in Ocho. And I was his attorney, we're assisting him with his, recording studio business. and he brought me on board, and basically asked me to work along with him to develop this idea, which became known as IRFM. And we spent about 2 years developing that idea, and then the station was launched in 1990. And I stayed with IRFM until 1995 as the vice chairman of the company.
Right.
And while there, I was involved in assisting with the programming, and IRFM also staged some live concerts every month, and I was, responsible for organizing those live events as well.
So you certainly have that 360 experience in terms of understanding what performers go through. One of the chatters in our chat room, Mr. Stanbury, is asking, what is the contact number for you if one should need to retain you as a lawyer?
Yeah, but he needs to erase that part where I said I work for free.
Oh no!
And I'll give the number now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm based in Florida. My number is 561-951-7141.
561-951-7141. 41. Okay, I've just put that in the chat room.
Email is also a very good way to make contact.
And the email for you?
It is my name, Lloyd Stanbury, at yahoo.co.uk.
Yahoo.co.uk. Great. All right. Perfect. And the person who asked that question, Roddy Campbell, is laughing because he understands that you're not going to be working pro bono, which means free.
Take the D out of Stanbury.
Oh, thank you. So you're logged in. Okay, let me try this again.
Yeah, I'm watching you.
You're watching me?
Yes, I'm watching.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow.
So don't make any funny moves.
Oh, so I like it. Now, the other thing that fascinated me about you, Mr. Stanbury, can I call you Lloyd?
Of course, that's the name.
We're very informal in the Conduit show, and as you can tell, things happen, so we have to roll with it and work with it. But I'm fascinated by the number of organizations that you've either started or are involved with on the board or in whatever capacity. And you kind of alluded to it very early in our conversation when you said something about, or it may have been someone in the chat room who said the love of the music. Tell us about some of the organizations, starting with the first one, which I believe was the Caribbean Music Expo. Where did that idea come from?
Well, the Caribbean Music Expo, the concept was to stage. Well, I've been going to MIDEM. MIDEM is a international music conference and trade fair held in Cannes, France. And I've been attending that event for a number of years. And I, thought that maybe we in the Caribbean should organize our own music trade show, because it's very expensive to go to MIDEM or to go to any trade fair.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was to organize a music trade fair focused on Caribbean music. And when I say Caribbean music, I mean what I consider to be the real Caribbean, which is made up of English, Spanish, French, and Dutch-speaking people.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea was to put together this music conference / trade show where we had conferences, we had live performance showcases, and we had exhibits. And we brought together music producers, managers, people in media, artists, to come together in Jamaica over 4 days and showcase, what the Caribbean has to offer in music.
Right.
So it's a typical trade fair.
Right. I understand
there
that.
are several trade fairs for the music industry, and that was what the Caribbean Music Expo was.
And did that actually take place for 4 years, or was it a longer period?
It took place. The first one was held in
Taking you back now, right?
99, okay. I think.
Yes.
And it was held for 3 years. And then after the first 3 years, we had another Caribbean Music Expo event, which was a residential training workshop
Mm-hmm.
over 11 days, where we invited like 27